much for joining us here today for this talk. We're going to be talking about Black experiences in music, both in the UK and the US. My name is Paula Akpan, and I am a journalist and Black historian as well. And I'm really excited to be here. We're joined by a very, very formidable panel. If you are watching with us on Zoom, please do send any questions that you have to the live chat, and they'll form part of the audience Q&A, which will be towards the end. If you're watching via Mixtape Madness's YouTube channel, you can also just tweet your question over to us at AIM_UK. So, introducing our panelists. We have Mr. Matthew Knowles and Michael Kay Kiladejo from Me Playlist and Music World Entertainment. As founder of Music World Entertainment Corporation, Mr. Matthew Knowles has served as executive producer for more than 100 award-winning platinum and gold albums in multiple genres, including pop, R&B, gospel, dance, and country, as well as soundtracks and special themed projects. Record sales have exceeded 450 million worldwide, with work featuring some of the biggest names in music, including Shaka Khan, Earth, Wind and Fire, the OJs, Destiny's Child, Solange, and Beyonce, just to name a few. And like I said, he's joined by Michael. Michael, based in London, is the managing partner of Music World International, recently appointed as president, global licensing and content acquisition at Me Playlist, the Nigerian-born global-facing streaming platform. His role involves generating leads and engaging global content delivery partners and right holders to make trending and multiple genres available to Me Playlist users. Joining them is Wozzy Brewster, OBE, from the Midi Music Company. She is the founder and executive director of the 25-year-old music education and talent development charity, and the charity is also based in Deptford. She sits on a number of boards, including UK Music Diversity Task Force and the Black Association for Arts UK. She has supported hundreds of artists and bands to pursue professional careers within the music industry, including Shingy, K Tempest, Jazz FM Breakthrough Act winner 2017, Yusuf Day, and many, many more. She is also joined by Claye. Claye is a dedicated family man, classically trained on piano, self-taught on drums and guitar, very talented. Jamaican-born artist who is well ahead of the curve in utilising his broad-ranging talents to define not just his own sound and spirit, but to help others find theirs too. Claye's musical collaborators have included the likes of Beanie Man, Vibes Cartel, Busy Signal, Kai Mani Marley, Chipmunk, Gentleman, Aloe Black, and Michael Patrick Kelly. He is also a graduate of the Midi Music Company program, and Wozzy is one of his mentors. We also have Kingsley and Kwabz from Music Madness. So Kingsley is one of the founding members behind Mixtape Madness, my bad, which stands as one of the British rap leading music platforms, encouraging today's youth to explore their creativity, surpass their greatest potential, and strive for better. Growing up in a council estate in Hackney, East London, Kingsley has always aspired to become a staple and influential pillar from within his community, playing an integral role behind the marketing and branding of Mixtape Madness. The established creative was the innovative genius behind the initial branding at the very beginning of their monumental journey. And he's joined by co-owner Kwabz, who has inspired the masses, provided opportunities for the youth, and also sustains a turbulent work ethic. Born to illegal immigrants hailing from Ghana in one of England's poorest electoral wards, Kwabz is one of the driving forces behind Mixtape Madness that over the course of 10 years has grown to become one of the UK's dominating Black music platforms with over 1 million YouTube subscribers, not to mention the 1 million records sold in the past 24 months alone. So thank you for bearing with me. That was quite a mouthful, but as you can see, we are joined by 6 incredible, talented panelists who will be sharing their knowledge from both sides of the Atlantic, and we're really, really excited to have them here. But before we get into the roundtable discussion, we're first going to be watching their pre-recorded keynotes, which they'll be explaining a bit more about their passions, their drives, and we'll be delving more into that into the discussion. Enjoy.
Hi, this is Matthew Knowles, and thank you, AIM Academy, for giving me this opportunity to talk to all of you. Obviously, it's some challenging times around the world with this pandemic and with all the other social crises around the world, especially in America. And so I've been asked to talk about Black music uh, and where our heritage and identity comes from. I have this conversation many times in the classroom when we talk about the emancipation of slaves through music and how it was years ago, that awful journey from Africa uh, to America that went through the diaspora, that went through the Caribbean and South America, and all the lives of the 12.2 million slaves, the many lives that were lost. And you know, they couldn't use, and even the drums that were native to the Africans, they're on the ship, they couldn't communicate. And they had to use chains and beating on the hull and crying and moaning to bring about communications and sound and music. What was it like a day of a slave to be not even allowed to smile or laugh without being put in a laughing barrel, but use music, use beautiful music without drums, without beats, just call and response to get through the day as a slave. Because the slave owners thought when the slaves were singing, they were happy. And how was it to have used the Bible, to sing the Bible because you couldn't read or write, to memorize the Bible, and how music was done to do that? And when we look at those slave landings like New Orleans, uh, which was Catholic and did give the slaves the opportunity once a week to celebrate. And when we look at Congo Square there in New Orleans, the home of jazz, and we look at the Delta, Mississippi, the home of blues, and we look at the instruments that the slaves brought to America, from drums to violin to Western Africa, where 30% of the slaves were Muslims, brought the string instruments. And we looked in the past how the many other genres of music actually, with no respect, no appreciation, or even giving us credit, got credited for country, got credited for rock, when in fact it was slaves. And it was a transition thereof. And when we look at even hip hop music today, and we look at, again, call and response and how the inspiration, we look at the Universal Zulu Nation, which started hip hop in America. I think it's time we give credit to Africa. I think it's time we give credit to those Black slaves here in America that endured that tremendous persecution. And we give credit that the origin of most music and most music around the world comes from our African heritage and those slaves. That's where music comes from. And that's where I pay my homage. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kay Kiladejo, and I'm the president of global licensing and content acquisition on the Me Playlist platform. I'm also a partner in Music World Entertainment, the company founded by Matthew Knowles. And I run my own record label, TRE, which is distributed by Universal. We've had releases with Jim Jones and Davido, and various artists like that. I've been asked to speak about the experiences that I've had and my take on the differences between the US and the UK in the music business. Well, the story starts for me 20 odd years ago when I was signed to Sony Music Publishing in the UK. And I got together with executives, even though I signed as a writer, and we formed a record label out of the publishing company called SMP for a brief time. And my experiences of that brief period were mixed. What I found was that while the situation was great to start off with, there was a lack of understanding in terms of, and a lack of progression for me in that particular environment. I quickly found out that I wasn't going to be allowed to progress. There was no progression for me in that scenario. And in fact, it was the realization of that made me leave the UK and go over to America. And the first artist that I started working with was a young artist called Alicia. She was 16. Started writing with her, and eventually we signed her to LaFace Records. She's known to the world now as Pink. And along the way, I found that my experiences in America differ from the UK in this way. I was able to find mentors who immediately gave me a chance based on my talent, what they perceived as my talent and my ability to do the job. So first off, Robert Coolbell and Kool and the Gang. I started working with them in a business capacity. I found them very accepting of my abilities. Nada Michael Walden is another who still remains a great friend of mine. He had 6 #1 records with Whitney Houston. Benny Medina, when we signed Pink to LaFace, he was very quick to introduce me to Babyface. And of course, today I work with Matthew Knowles, who I learn from every time I speak to him. And the interesting contrast was that in the UK, I can remember in the early days speaking to an executive, a very well-known executive who's had a great amount of success, who I had a great relationship with. And he was kind enough to pull me to one side at one point and say to me, Mike, you know, I'm going to tell you something. He said to me, after you've left the office and I go into the back room or the conference room or whatever it is, you know, with all of the other executives that all happen to be white like him, you do not know how they speak about you guys, the Black producers and the Black writers. He said to me, you are in a war and you don't even know the first thing about it. None of your budgets are going to get past. The work that the endeavors that you're embarking on, there's no real destination or success at the end of that road. And it was really enlightening to me. And it actually gave a truth to all of the frustrations I've been having in the industry in the UK. I found that when I was in the US, you know, for better or for worse, there were Black divisions, Black music divisions. So you knew where to go, you know, initially. And even though we crossed over from Black to pop, there was an understanding that, or an ecosystem where Black executives and creators could take their work and succeed and get on, and so on and so forth. So I would say that over the years, I would think that the UK music industry, not just the music industry, but the creative industries and all sorts of industries, have lost many billions for lack of exploitation of the talent, the huge talent that exists in the Black community, for the simple fact that there's been no ecosystem to support it, and no will. I could tell lots and lots of stories, interesting stories, about how that manifests itself in my own personal life. But what it boils down to is that you cannot be what you cannot see. And even though I could visualize what I wanted to be, there was no real support system to support it. I had to take what I was doing global to achieve that success, and that's the key. That's the key, and that's also my take on the experiences that I've had in the UK and the US in the music business. Thanks for listening.
Rude boy town, yeah.
Hello, my name is Wozzy Brewster, and I am the Executive Director and founder of the Midi Music Company, artist manager, and co-founder of the Black Association for Arts, BAFA UK.
Hi, I'm Clay, international reggae and dancehall artist, Grammy-nominated songwriter, platinum producer, label owner, publishing company owner, Black entrepreneur. Hi.
This is our take on Black experiences in music UK. Historically, Black artists have struggled to be heard within the UK music industry. I used to work at the Albany Empire in Deptford, a local music and theatre arts venue. And I grew up with Maxi Priest. My mum was a friend of Maxi's mum, and we all grew up in Lewisham together. And when Maxi Priest had his first album, he wanted to do an event back in the 1980s to launch that album and to celebrate. The rest of the staff at the Albany didn't really understand the sound system culture. And myself and another professional colleague, Beverly Glean, who is the founder and CEO, artistic director of Irish Dance Theatre, agreed to run the night. The night went off without a hitch. I left there at 5 a.m. in the morning. It was a sold out crowd, and everybody was dancing away to Saxon Sound System and Maxi Priest.
I myself have been in situations where cultural difference or cultural misrepresentation have been the thorn in projects, and having worked with some of Saxon artists myself, such as Daddy Colonel, Papa Levi, Daddy Sandy, I got a good understanding of what it was like then, and unfortunately, most of the issues are still prevalent today.
Jump forward to 21st century, and the landscape is different when you consider technological advancements, but the infrastructure is pretty much unchanged, especially for promoting Black British music. There are a lot of aspects of the UK music industry that need addressing. Firstly, establishing a more diverse workforce. UK Music's Diversity Task Force, of which I've been involved in from the beginning, tracks sex and ethnicity since 2015. 2018 stats showed that Black, Asian, and ethnic minorities representation in the UK was up from 15.6% in 2016 to 17.8% in 2018. The 2020 report is due out this month, and it will be interesting to note that what advancements have actually been made in representation in 2020. All of the UK music industry needs to participate in this mapping of employees in order to gain a true reflection of progress, glass ceilings, and opportunities that need to be created to diversify teams. A more diverse workforce will allow for greater opportunities for Black British music. It's a no-brainer.
Well, technology has created a shift in the music industry, and I think it's for the better. But more so, I think it's very important for diversity of workforce, especially this brings the understanding of culture into the equation. This is a report that I am looking forward to see, because especially I would like to see if there is a growth in Black women in leadership roles. Without this happening, it's safe to say that diversity is a misnomer, because, you know, I can't see that many Black women in leadership roles. So I'm definitely looking forward to this.
Agreed. With regards to tastemakers and radio, it's difficult to assess how effective broadcasting platforms are at marketing Black British music. I wrote to Ofcom back in 2016 regarding the takeover of dance and Black music stations, particularly Kiss FM, which is owned by Bauer, and Capital Extra, which is owned by Global. Now, especially as I'm an old school raver who followed Kiss FM when it was a pirate station, and on several occasions, I've been interviewed on Choice FM, which is now Capital Extra. Ofcom's response to me was very disheartening and basically redirected me to digital radio stations playing reggae, soca or bashment or dance music. The problem there was that originally these stations were licensed to play primarily Black music. And if you know anything about how to get a radio license, it's a long haul of A4, full-scape folders outlining the station's plans. And we all know that digital stations don't pay the same level of royalties. So how can Black British artists amass wealth?
And this has to change, because I feel like, one, radio stations do not acknowledge the viability of urban music, regardless of the achievements and platforms of the artists in the genre. The lack of playlist diversity, the filtering of artists and genres on specific stations, i.e. urban music is funneled through digital stations only and splashed across the quote unquote major stations. So we need to see a lot more change in that arena.
Moving forward, we need ownership, money and control. The millennials are open-minded and have been creating independent businesses. SBTV, Jamal Edwards, Murky Warner, Stormzy, and Girls Irate, Carla Marie Williams. Now, in order to underpin growth, we also need investment in the talent pipelines, not just for artists, but also for creative entrepreneurs. The Midi music company has been running a creative industries careers advice service, Seekers, since 1997, and has supported artists just like Claye, with me today, as well as DJs and producers like DJ NG and other artists like Shinge and Steam Down, managed by Kaya Milan, who brokered a Decca Universal deal. Now, we recommended Kaya for the Music Managers Forum's Manager Accelerator program, which goes a long way towards enhancing the skills of future managers and providing investment.
Again, ownership is a subject we cannot stress enough. One thing for certain is that the millennials are shedding a light on this, and it's evident in these label services deal structure, of which I'm privy to as well. I would like to see more of these independent artists highlighted, though, because, you know, it really does set a tone.
Now, since the hashtag "the show must be paused," the music industry took time out to reflect on their role, unconscious bias, and how they can change the playing field for Black people in the business. This has meant that several initiatives have formed to engage with the much needed change, including the All Black Coalition, DCMS, Black Music Coalition, and the soon to be launched Black Association for Arts, BAFA UK, which is founded by Cleveland Watkins, MBE, Jazzy B, OBE, James Joseph, myself, and other co-founders, supported by Omar, Goldie, Clay here with me today, Shirley Thompson, OBE, Andrew Roachford, MBE, and many more, to collaborate, elevate, and celebrate Black professionals. And it will be launched on the 6th of November, 2020.
On that note, I'd like to say thanks, and that I'm privileged to be a part of BAFA and to help build a community and to help to create a level playing field for Black creatives and entrepreneurs. So thank you very much again. Thank you.
So over to you, Maestro. Thank you for listening.
Right.
Rude boy town, yeah. Hey. No, 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 no. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. It feel like downtown Kingston when we are all through Brixton. We see familiar faces, it don't feel like England.
Yes, people, my name is Kingsley and I'm a co-owner at Mixtape Madness, and I'm with
Kwabz, a fellow co-owner of Mixtape Madness.
And yeah, we just want to talk to you a little in this keynote about, I guess, our experiences at 10 years at Mixtape Madness, being black business owners in the music industry. We'll start by just talking a little bit about kind of the come-ups of MM over the last 10 years, and then get into kind of some of the things we're doing now, and hopefully talk about the future of MM. So in terms of Mixtape Madness, we started back in 2009, 2010, and the original idea for Mixtape Madness was all about connecting or creating a platform for artists at the time to give away free mixtapes or singles, or like just free music, kind of like the DatPiff of the UK. And we created this amazing platform where artists can upload their mixtapes and then their fans can download it. And the whole idea was to create a freemium model which will allow then their fans to engage on a wider scale. So maybe if you downloaded their free music, then you'll be inclined to then actually pay for like their concert tickets or their merch, or just engage with them on a more super fan basis rather than just be your passive kind of fan. And that was the original idea. We started off that great, and that really grew into, Kwabz, you want to pick up off the back of that?
No, I think, you kind of summed it up very well in terms of the start, and you just got to remember, music wasn't as accessible then as it is now. So when we were starting up, there were even some artists that we had to convince it's more efficient to do it this way, to stand outside your local trainer shop in Wood Green or Oxford High Street, handing out your physical copies of your CD. But so following on from the intro Kingsley had just given us,
I think one thing to also mention actually is that I guess we built a massive platform from that. We had loads of users, we had lots of engagement on the website, and I think what changed the dynamics of how we grew or how we adapted as a business is that around maybe 2011 times, or maybe a bit further down, streaming became a lot more popular. UK artists were actually earning money from streaming music, so Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Amazon Music, and all the other kind of DSP platforms artists started to find more ways to monetize off of these platforms. So for us, we had to kind of adapt our model.
Yes. So, going back on the journey, I think, Kingsley definitely being rather modest. And as I've said on numerous occasions, he was definitely the closest thing we had to Steve Jobs in the quote-unquote hood, as it were. And he'd been innovative and instrumental with regards to quite a lot of people's websites, apps, and other kind of technological developments, as it were. So he'd kind of built this online community known as Mixtape Madness, which was built to kind of encourage gamification and treat it as like a direct-to-consumer model that allowed artists to kind of gain further understanding of their supporters, as it were. But as he had mentioned, originally you're competing with likes of DatPiff and then maybe Bandcamp. But as technology started to evolve and more artists started to create and share content on platforms such as YouTube, we decided that instead of looking at other forms of technology as our opposition, we decided to embrace other forms of technology and kind of use it to our advantage. And Eddie was extremely pivotal in that transition as well, with regards to enabling us to kind of set up a stronger YouTube channel, as well as learn the behaviors of consumers on SoundCloud and so on and so forth. Shortly after that, I believe 2013, I received a phone call from a good friend of mine, DJ Kenny All-Star, and he mentioned something about wanting to create more content again. So originally we went down to Represent Radio, recorded a few freestyles there. one of the artists being AJ Tracy, funny enough. And from that initial meetup, as it were, or those initial recordings, we looked at it and said, no, we can take this to another level. We need to bring freestyles back to the dance and reflect this current generation. And we believe that's exactly what we did with Manuel Bars. And that kind of added to the momentum we had gained from uploading audio visuals, which is what we'd done prior, using YouTube. So I guess during that period, it's kind of seen as like the second phase of where we became renowned for a lot of the content we've been creating via YouTube. And then I guess the third wave of has kind of just resulted in us selling over 1 million records within the last 2 years, and also, which has also allowed us to put over £1 million in the pockets of young emerging artists from, challenging backgrounds that we're all too familiar with. And we honestly believe that we've helped to create, legitimate economies for many young people who are forgotten about by society. So in a nutshell, that's the Mixtape Madness story, and we're looking forward to the AIM initiative. And I feel, just before we jump into the lecture, one of the difficult challenges I faced in particular is access to capital. So being a young black entrepreneur, I feel, we unfortunately don't necessarily always have the luxury of bank of mum and dad. And when we do try to access capital from other sources, we're not versed in VCs, we're not versed in private equity. Our networks unfortunately didn't extend that far. When we try to maybe go to the banks for loans, I don't know, maybe they look at your surname and then they start to get cold feet. So I feel a lot of young black entrepreneurs, access to capital is one thing. I believe access to information is another thing as well. And I also believe that access to certain technological tools has proven a barrier of entry as well. So those are my thoughts personally.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we've created economies, but we've also, I like to feel like we've definitely built like a set of we've supported a lot of small industries as well, from like creative industries to modeling agencies to video kind of directors. And I think it's been a great kind of journey over the last 10 years, kind of seeing us grow from this kind of small platform into this kind of set of micro kind of economies in which we're building lots of little economies. And now, as Kwabz said, we're supporting artists on much more wider scales. I think moving forward now, Mixtape Madness as an entity is probably kind of divided into maybe a small subset of different kind of entities or units or sub kind of businesses where we're supporting. We have our label side where we're supporting artists in terms of releasing and distributing music. We have our media side where we're working with brand partners to connect kind of various brands from Adidas, Spotify to Boohoo Man, and even AIM, for example, with kind of our audiences at a root level. And the future moving forward is definitely to continue to connect wider organizations with the culture, and also continue to help that kind of economy of music artists in terms of creating revenue streams from themselves or on a kind of more independent level. And that's something that we definitely pride ourselves in doing.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of grassroots community charitable work, whether it's going to the House of Parliament to kind of protest legislation that disproportionately affects young people from our backgrounds, to partnering up with the Forefront Project, and as well as work with groups such as Haringey, Young People Empowered back in the day. And we feel us becoming members of AIM takes that journey to another level. And we are hoping that via our partnership with the AIM organisation, we can hope to help even wider scope of disenfranchised young people that wish to engage in music, and we're hoping that we can take talks to another level. So, you know, I hope you guys enjoy this Black History Month talk, and thank you for locking in and tuning in. Cool. Peace.
From our panelists who are here with us today. And now we're going to enter into a roundtable discussion. So I will obviously be moderating, but we're thinking of this as a natural, free-flowing conversation where panelists will be able to chime in as and when they choose to. Oh, mine has frozen. Can everyone? Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, I would love to hear about everyone's journey into music very briefly, but I'd love to hear how you started up, how you found that passion and desire that has clearly propelled you to where you are now. And maybe if we could kick off with Wozzy.
Had to be me. Hello, everybody's listening, watching. I guess for me, it was very much, my parents came from Barbados, and my gran was the first person to come to the UK. And I was very blessed at the age of 5 to watch my sister do these ballroom dancing lessons in our very local community arts space called the Albany. And I think that with my gran and my mother's love for music, we had vinyl everywhere. Al Green, Roberta Flack, just so much music that we were able to, what infused me was a love for music. And my gran bought me my first guitar, and I used to play 12-string guitar from the age of 5 to 14. And very much that love of music and being in plays and schools and all of the rest of it, I went back to the Albany in Deptford, which is where my organisation is actually based across the road from the Albany. And I was able to be an actress, a singer, and charter a career along that trajectory. And I think that when I kind of realised that this was a very self-employed, freelance, project-to-project world, I quickly decided that to be on the stage for me wasn't going to be the avenue I wanted to take. But with my understanding of productions, film, radio, TV, the different aspects that I've been involved in myself, I could take that learning and perhaps help young people to be able to make a journey. I think that with Kwabz, your last statement about that whole wanting to be able to support other people, and I've been able to do that through working for the Albany and being a venue manager and working with major artists, growing up with people like Maxi Priest and all the rest of that. And what, you know, at the Albany, I was able to watch some amazing shows and work with just so many different artists, from Jamiroquai, Sade, just so many people, being the house manager, so running the night, making the night run on time, and you know, having that kind of vibe, giving them a vibe to a space, that led me to work then for community music. And I was like their South East London manager. And then out of that was born the Midi Music Company. And as we celebrate our 25th anniversary, that mentoring for me carries on, that connecting people, that ability to be able to, with my team and the board of directors. So we have Keith Harris, OBE, Stevie Wonder's manager on our board. We have Gordon Williams, who's chair of is chair of Midi Music Company, but he's a partner in Leon Thompson Solicitors. We're about to get somebody to join our board from Spotify. We've got Malika Sani from Cobalt Music, and Grant House is an accountant in the film, music and entertainment industry. So surrounding yourself with people who would be useful for progression for young people was important. And certainly for me, kind of, yeah, where I am now, that's doing UK Music Diversity Task Force, sitting on the BPI's Music Export Growth Scheme, and the establishment of BAFA with founder Cleveland Watkis and Jazzy B and all of those people, is about what pathways, I'm really into pathways and how people learn. And I truly believe that you do have to understand where you come from. You've got to be able to manifest it in your mind in order for you to achieve that. So I've been very lucky to be a British Council consultant, to work in Mauritius, Berlin, Lithuania, Italy, Ireland, and do kind of the same thing, advise and consult people on how they can create projects and businesses. But at home, at the Midi Music Company, being able to support young people to be an artist manager, to have their own record label. I remember many years ago when we first started our Seekers program, I got a call from Martin Maxi Priest's brother, and they were doing their record label. And how that program came about was that call and that question from Martin was about, how do I run a label? Where do I need to go? What do I need to connect with? And that was a 2.5-hour call. And I thought, okay, we're a charity. So what do I need to do to support people? If these questions are out there, this was way back in 1996, 97, these questions are out there. Young people don't know how to create their journeys and their pathways. We need to create a program to respond. So in a nutshell, as much short as I can, that's my journey to where I sit. And yeah, continuing even today, I'm in Womex. So making more contacts and bringing those to young people is part of the key.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Wozzy. And I think, Mr. Knowles, I'm also very interested in your journey into music, but also how it links to what you spoke about in your keynote with regards to the links to slavery as well. So could you tell us a little bit more about how you got into the position that you're in now, but also the work that you're studying and teaching as well? Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
I'm enjoying listening. I should know better. I do only 7 Zoom calls a day, but I'm enjoying listening to all of the young people. When I say young, obviously I'm the oldest on the panel. This is my 29th year. Next year will be 30 years in the business. Just briefly, I'll share, I did 20 years of corporate America, and I had always set a goal for 20 years. Didn't know what I was gonna do, obviously, when I first started in corporate America. But it gave me the opportunity to see the world. I worked with Philips Medical System in Eindhoven, Xerox Medical Systems, and Johnson & Johnson. And then one day, this thing called managed care, and we all know what that is. That's when the insurance companies tell you, the patient, the doctor, the hospital, how much money can be spent on a procedure. And my neurosurgeon called me into his office and he said, Mr. Knowles, I'm sorry we can't use your instruments because right now I have the highest cost per surgical procedure, so we have to use something else. I called my then former wife and friend and told her it was a defining moment for me and I couldn't do this anymore. So I had to dig really deep. I heard the word passion said many times, and I think we'll probably hear it said even more, because I believe it's about finding your passion, the thing that excites you, the thing that you dream about. And my passion was always music also. I grew up in Alabama. My mother made me take piano lessons. I'm glad she did now. I didn't like it at the time, but you know, I was in a little boy band. I was in the choir and was the lead singer. So I always had a passion of music. My dad made me a DJ without me really understanding it at 12 years old. On Sundays, they would dance in the living room, and on the vinyl, he would give me a dime, a nickel, and a quarter to make sure that the vinyl didn't scratch, because that quite upset him. And so I began to do a playlist, not knowing what I was doing. Began to read the liner notes. And so at the same time, a defining moment was happening with another family member. And she had just lost on Star Search with her girl group. And so all of that combined together, I started a transition. I didn't quit corporate America, I transitioned. I went back to college. I took 3 courses: artist management and others, production. And then I went to as many seminars as I could to learn and build relationship, because this is a relationship business. And that's how I got into business. As his story, I like to say his story because most history is from a white man's perspective. And so I always say his story versus my story. My story is I did not leave corporate America for Beyonce. Be really clear. I left corporate America to start on a new journey of my passion. My first artist wasn't Destiny's Child. It was a rapper, Lil O, that I got signed at MCA Records. His first single, Can't Stop, featured this girl group, Destiny. That's where I began in the industry. And fast forward, I think most people know, or maybe they don't know, but have had an amazing, incredible career. And it's time for that career to sunset. Right now, my passion is really to educate and to motivate in music business and entrepreneurship. And I heard that word entrepreneurship said repeatedly. And that's what I'm passionate about. I'm working today with another part of the inside of that passion, Me Playlist, of being head of the marketing. And Me Playlist is a DSP, digital streaming platform. And we're really excited about that. You know, Michael is a partner, and we have another brother in Lagos that's a partner. And we're bringing African music out of Africa to the world. And as well, we're bringing international music to Africa. And you'll hear a lot more about Me Playlist. We will be putting up, Michael will talk about this more, 8 million songs here in the next 3 months. And we're on our way. So currently what I do in music, more than anything, I teach at 3 universities in America. And that's, I really enjoy. I have a master class on the music industry coming up starting in January at University of Houston. I teach at the Art Institute, the Emancipation of Slaves Through Music. And I teach at Prairie View A&M University, HBSU, Sports, Events, and Entertainment Marketing. I went back, got my MBA and PhD years ago. And I have 4 TV projects, actually it's 5, and 4 of those I'm working with folks in London, ironically, for the Destiny's Child musical, for the Destiny's Child documentary, for entrepreneurship TV show, and then, you know, Me Playlist and Michael, we're partners. So, you know, that's where I am today. It's really about finding your passion, because when you live your passion, you never work a day in your life. And what coexists with passion is work ethics. And that's why you see artists like Beyond that work so hard, is because they love it. They love it. So it's about getting knowledge. That's why we failed a lot, because a lot of folks don't have the knowledge. There's a lot of moving parts on the business side of music. We like to say 70% business, 30% creative. And unless you understand, if you're on the other side of the microphone, understand all the moving parts, it becomes very difficult to navigate.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I think speaking to passion, entrepreneurship, but also not having a framework to work from, I think that's something that you touched on, Kwabz. And I'd love to hear a bit about your journey into music, but also that difficulty, as you touched on in your keynote, with actually finding the resources. How did you get started then?
How did I get started? Because
that's the question for Kwabz.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, hi there. First and foremost, apologies for the slight background noise, because I'm still in the office today. In terms of like how did I get started, and my passion for the music industry, I think there's a lot of things that we had kind of touched on beforehand in the keynotes. And, you know, I really enjoyed hearing the narrative about Albany Theatre, because at a very, very young age, which kind of inspired my entrepreneurial journey, was hearing about, you know, the fire that occurred in Deptford, and the lack of accountability that society wanted to have with regards to the young Black lives that were lost in Deptford. And like hearing these narratives as a young man, and then growing up in an environment such as Tottenham, which in of itself had its own interesting political race history, as it were. As stated, you know, my parents came to this country and they were kind of just given housing in an area that was at the time regarded as a bit of a cesspit to wider society. Then a year later, the riots kicked off because a young Black woman was killed at the hands of the police. And I feel moments like that kind of never left the estate's history or the estate's consciousness, which kind of then infested into kind of like my understanding of society and the world. And it made it apparent to me the importance of kind of building your own economies and building your own level of social infrastructure, because that's something like, as a young person growing up in that environment, I used to hear all the time, whether it was a Pan-Africanist or someone with locks, or it was just a local politician, because at the time, Bernie Grant was the politician. You know, there was always this reoccurring theme of like being self-sufficient and kind of just building your own ecosystem whilst being part of a wider society, as it were. And so in the back of my mind, I kind of always had that burning desire to kind of like, all right, how do I help build an economy that's going to help empower people from environments such as myself? And then I guess the passion for music kind of was born from, I think that's just always been innate. And I feel like music, my earliest memory was like when my uncle, my mum's brother, came to DJ at my first Holy Communion party. And the vibes and just the energy that and the level of culture that was just infused me kind of just triggered something. Like I think music kind of presents this unspoken language, and whether people regard lyrics in music as negative or positive, it's got the ability to evoke emotion and tell narratives that you can't depict through just like simple words alone, as it were. And I think that's always kind of triggered my interest in music. Kind of going through secondary school, had a massive appreciation for the garage/grime generation and the way they displayed many DIY traits of the hip hop era in the 80s, as it were, or late 70s. And I feel that's a narrative in the UK that we don't often get to hear about. We don't get to hear about the fact that, yeah, in New York, they were definitely doing what they were doing in relation to music, but we also had a hip hop culture here in the early 80s, late 70s. It's not like they were doing in America and then 20 years later, we gained an interest in that sort of music, as it were. And then even when you kind of go into the 90s and you're learning about Morris Delta, you hear about groups such as Mud Family, you're hearing about Roots Maneuver. Even if we were talking about Estelle, long before American Boy became a hit in the 90s, she was doing her thing. Rest in peace, Ty, or T.Y. as some commentators has referred to him as well. And interviewing him on Mixtape Madness was another inspirational moment in my career. And he kind of presented to me that, you know, time isn't linear. A lot of people, he said to me, people refer to him as an old school rapper, but he dropped his album in and around the same time Dizzy Rascal dropped Boy in the Corner. It's just, we perceived his type of music heralding from a much earlier point in UK music history than we would Dizzy Rascal's. And I feel it's that lack of acknowledgement that's presented in the UK that deeply saddens and worries me at times, because it's almost like, if you don't acknowledge what happened yesterday, how do you really fully take on board what's happening today, and how do you fully learn from the mistakes that have occurred yesterday, as it were? So
great point. And I think that's something that I'd love to come back to as well, in terms of credit and how we give credit to people as well. So just to give everyone a chance to talk about their journeys as well, I'd love to move over.
yeah, sorry. Yes,
No
please
worries.
do move on. Apologies for waffling on.
I know it happens, don't worry about it. Clay, I'd love to hear briefly, please, just a bit about your journey into music as well.
All right, so I'm Jamaican born, so I started out in the church as every Caribbean, born person. You have to go to church if you don't go to church. So my mom sings, my dad is a multi-instrumentalist. My grandfather used to play with the famous poet Louis Bennett, and he's had a medal for his role in ska and mento music in Jamaica. So I was exposed to the music from an earlier age. So whilst being in the church, I was singing, and then I got into instruments and I got into playing the music. Then I got into trying to figure out why and how does these guys put the music together, sort of thing. So I started to experiment on a Roland XP50 in the church with floppy diskettes and just a little amplifier. So that's when I started to try to sort of figure out how they put the music together, apart from just playing the piano. And then one curiosity led to the next. So I was just putting it together on the XP50. Then I got into the computer, and just to be brief, and it just led me to wanting to go to a studio. So I went to a studio there, that everybody was passing through at the time, the Beanie Mans and everyone. So I was at studio just playing phrases on tracks for people on MPC 60. Then I left, well, while I was in schools, the whole stuff, bunking school to just go make beats. Then I came to the UK, and then I continued, because by then I just love music. I'm making beats, I'm doing all that stuff. Then I'm still working with people who are of certain credibility, but I didn't really take music serious as like a serious thing, as a business of music. So then what I did, I ended up got assigned to Rock Nation, actually. I think it was 2010. For me, that was actually the year before that I had a Grammy nomination with a Sean Paul record, sorry. And then, signed to Rock Nation, and then, it just went from there. And, like you meet people, and you sort of learn the business as you go along, and you learn about the industry. And that's, and I'm still here.
Amazing. And Kingsley, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like, it's been it's amazing to be on a panel with like so many like minds that have got like crazy experiences, and I'm sitting here just looking at some of the names and just listening to everyone's journey, and I'm like, it's an actual mad honor to just sit with some of you guys and to understand what you're doing. For me, my journey into music, like I think it's a bit cliche to say, but it's not. Like, I think as a Black man, music has always been, like Kwabz says, and like most of the guys said, it's just always been innate in us. It's always been part of what I would like to call like our makeup as just Black people. And as in terms of like, I know Mr. Knowles speaks a lot about like how music and slavery and what was innate in us, what we used as our mechanisms and our ways to express ourselves and to I guess as our escape mechanism. That's always it has always been that for me. Just it invokes an emotion within me, which when I was sad, it's what I used to escape the sadness, or if I was in a really happy mood, it's what I'm using to kind of propel me to be longer. Growing up, I come from what I consider like a second generation family to grow up in the UK. So my parents came straight from Ghana, and I moved to UK when I was like 4 years old. So technically, even me, I don't know if I'm second generation really, because I was born in Ghana and moved here when I was 4, but however you want to call it. And the craziest thing, I think every kind of kid of my age and my generation, we always know that we had that kind of same mantra instilled in us from our parents, which was do this, work as a lawyer, doctor, or a physician, or something that's just a route there. Music was kind of like, whoa, you can't go there because there was no opportunity, or it doesn't look like it'll make money. But growing up for me, in what I call and what I mentioned, like council estate, or being part of a council estate culture, I think I grew up in a place called Manor House, which is in Hackney, and we had one of the largest kind of council estates probably in the UK, Woodbury Down Estate, and seeing the amount of people who were able to kind of cram in one estate, it kind of creates a community for us to really bond as people. And music, as young Black boys growing up in such kind of conditions and estates, was our kind of route to maybe understanding ourselves, to expressing ourselves, and that is what we use. So luckily for me, during my kind of growing up in that council estate, one, I gained a sense of community, a sense of, I guess, brotherhood or sisterhood to the people around us, and just a form of respect for those that are around me and that I'm growing with. And we were lucky enough to have a youth club, and in the youth club was where, like, I don't even know if how access to youth clubs these days are very far and few, but back then youth club was our place of, there's a lot of kind of pillars for me in that youth club who kind of helped shape, I guess, my ideologies about life and about music. That was the first place I got access to a music studio, and I had no clue of what I was doing, but I knew that I could use Fruity Loops to make beats, and we had the little booth to record music. And that's where kind of my passion for music really started to grow. Growing up in secondary school, it was almost like the two things that I was probably always praised for in school was either music or technology. And the one place where in school they would let us stay after school for long stretches of times was in the music rooms, where in the time of private radio and just us and a few of like the people, my friends, all we used to do, and only way that we stayed out of trouble after school, was to spend our times creating and, I guess, like exploring those talents and those truths which is in music. And for me, I was never a person that was necessarily a great craftsman in writing lyrics or rapping, but I was always the guy that was able to make the music. I was always the guy that was able to connect what people wanted in terms of like producing and just even bits and pieces of sound engineering. And yeah, I guess now that kind of transcend or what you're seeing now with Mixtape Madness. And I think everything that I've always wanted to bring with Mixtape Madness was just that same sense of community, that same sense of culture, and just that sense of belonging through Mixtape Madness as a platform. And now we're at a place where we've spoken excessively about, where we're just continuing to create kind of lots of microeconomies for people. And like growing up in like a private radio era where you had people that didn't have such wide reach, and all we had was our private radios, where you had to kind of tune in and listen very closely to your radio. You had to tune into dodgy kind of radio stations. Now I'm in a place where I can distribute music on a wider scale to our people, and hopefully help them or create that same sense of emotion and create that same sense of belonging, and just hopefully just continue to amplify the message that there's always a wider reach to what you can do, whatever kind of community you come from.
Amazing. And I love seeing that trajectory as well as you grow and as you've evolved as well. So that's incredible. And last but not least, Michael, I'd love to hear just a little bit briefly about your journey into music. And then also, I think because you touched on it in your keynote, you mentioned the lack of progression as well for, Black execs and producers. So if you could also speak to that, that would be incredible.
Yeah, absolutely, I will. Well, firstly, I'd like to say how thrilled I am to have been able to invite Mr. Knowles to this panel, because I'm a direct benefit of the lineage of slaves of which he's speaking about. So that's a huge pleasure for me to be able to do that. But speaking very briefly about how I came to music, I mean, I'm a product of Nigerian immigrants to the UK. So, I was always going to be, you got to be studying, you've got to have education, all that kind of stuff. So I was kind of blessed with, or cursed perhaps, with the left side brain and right side brain. So for me, really, I always had the talent for music. I could sing, I could write, and one of the first jobs I did, for example, in the music business was singing jingle for a Roundtree's Fruit Pastel advert at 15 years old. I also, for me, I just cannot, unfortunately, see a limitation to what I can do. So the way I actually directly entered the music business was that I called the head of Sony Music at the time. I must have been about 17 years old, and I said to him, I called him. I managed to get him on the phone. I don't know how I did that. And I said to him, look, if you give me if you give me studio time to record my songs, I'll let you have my publishing. I'll let you have publishing rights. I didn't know you weren't supposed to do that. So what eventually transpired was exactly that, and I ended up starting a label, as I said in my keynote, out of the Sony Music Publishing, and that was actually formed for me as an artist. So that's how I got into the industry. Really, that's my direct entry point into it.
Incredible. And I guess a question thrown out to everyone. Do you think in the last 20 years, things have become easier for Black execs, Black producers, Black writers, and other Black folks in the industry? Or are we still facing a lack of progression? I think maybe Michael, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that there's been a progression, absolutely. I think online and digital has has really caused a lot of that progression, because the spirit of independence is alive. For example, at this particular point in time with the company that we've formed, Midi Playlist, if you're an artist, or if you're a record label, for example, you can create music and you can come to us via one of our aggregators, and you can go directly online or reach your audience without so much the gatekeepers telling you what kind of music you can make and how it needs to be sold. Even if you're an independent artist, we can aggregate for you onto the platform. We can find a way. So I think that has really changed a lot in terms of being able, and for people being able to progress in the business. Absolutely.
Does anyone agree or disagree?
Well, I'll jump in here.
Yeah, I feel.
Okay, let's start with Mr. Knowles, and then Kwabz, you straight after.
Yeah, I think it's an ever-changing market, the music industry in total. I think the same set of challenges we have in every industry, when we start looking at structural racism, exists absolutely also in the music industry. At the very, very top, those decision makers, do they look like us? And the answer is many times they don't. But the music industry is ever changing, with social media and streaming. And as Michael said, a lot of independent artists, independent record labels. But lastly, I think the future of music, and I've always been ahead of this curve, you will see music, not just hear it. Think about it. You will see music.
And please, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, in agreement with both speakers to an extent, but I do feel, as one of the earlier speakers mentioned, that technology has broken down many barriers of entry, especially here in the UK. You know, this is kind of like one of the first times in the UK where we're seeing undiluted, unapologetic forms of young Black people expressing themselves make headlines in the national charts and so on and so forth. So I feel now, probably more than previous moments in history, there's an opportunity for acts to independently build their own ecosystem, their own fan bases, and monetize their own art, as it were. But again, I'm not ignoring the fact that there are still structural forms of racism that we have to combat and be aware of, as well as acknowledge that it's still quite a patriarchal industry as well, and that we also need to erode and allow for more women to have opportunities within the music industry as well.
And I guess, Kingsley, go for it, go.
Yeah, no, I think over the last maybe like 10 years, like 5 years or so, I definitely think there's been I definitely feel like I'm seeing a lot more people that look like me at the higher label execs, at the exec positions in labels. I've seen a lot of labels are restructuring to kind of introduce a lot more Black and ethnic minorities in their positions, and shout outs to all those guys. Maybe it's because we work with some of these labels for what we do, and we really get to see like the influence and the impact a lot of these Black execs are making and the waves that they're making in our industry now. I think naturally globalization has been playing a massive part, and the way globalization and just digital advancement in digital technologies just has allowed a reach of music to obviously travel far and wider. And now, like Kwabz is saying, like there's never been the last couple months, every month, every week without fail, I'm seeing in the top 20 charts in the UK like a Black artist who is in the charts that's breaking records like on a weekly basis, and we're progressively getting there. I think UK it's great. I think definitely now for me, I want to start seeing a lot more of those UK artists be in the charts outside of just the UK charts. How do European ultimately American charts at a more independent level, rather than just the big artists in the UK that's got a ton of money that's pumped into them, and they can just easily make that swift transition.
Yeah, you're being modest though, Kingsley, because like you said, 10 years ago when we started, you know, we didn't feel that we'd be involved, or we just between the two of us, you know, we would be breaking artists to that level in their career. And what we're effectively saying now is that we can literally take our artists from where the starting point all the way to the kind of top tiers of success within the UK, and maybe on an international playing field, there's a bit more of a wider infrastructure play that's required, but that in itself must show some level of progress, as it were.
Exactly.
I think that speakers, you're right in terms of your achievements, but I disagree with the pace of change. So thank you, Mr. Knowles, for saying that I'm in the young category. I'm not. I'm radiating 45. I'm 57. And I've been in this business for 40 years.
You're lying.
I'm not lying. But thank you. But it's more about, I've been in the industry for 40 years. And right from the New Cross Flyer, the Albany, the Fire, all of that journey, I was there. And I think what's happening is there are 2 points of change that haven't really moved. And that is music education in schools and above, one that covers Black music, Black artists, the business, and the other is the infrastructure of the industry and its workforce. Because the UK Music Diversity Task Force, when that report comes out for 2020, that is still probably 3,000 to 4,000 organisations who have completed that survey, so that we can have a look at their infrastructure And when we're looking at their infrastructure, it's important that we're not going, okay, so they may have Black, Asian, ethnic minority representation, but at what scale is that? What level of the organization are they? Are they the vice president, like somebody like Malika Sani at Cobalt on business affairs? Or are they actually just in the admin team? Or are they head of A&R? And that, for me, having run the Albany as a venue and then now doing the Midi Music Company, that who's around the table and who has the power? Who are the policy makers? Who are the decision makers? And who has got the investment money? You mentioned in your talk, for example, around investment and how to get money. I love to take these opportunities, people are listening, to make sure that people are aware of what money is available in the UK. So if you are looking to go global, you need to make sure that you're actually applying to the Music Export Growth Scheme if you want to go global, and that's under the BPI. If you are looking for a seeding project, you need to have a look at the Help Musicians UK's MOBO funds, because they've just been invested about £3,000. It can help somebody to do an EP. And then you also need to look at the Arts Council's lottery project money. They have just now included DJs in that. DJs weren't included, and that's very much thanks to Natalie Price, who's one of the arts officers at the Arts Council, ensuring that when we think about DJs, and I grew up with DJs, so I work with people like Jesse B, but I love Soul to Soul. When we think about DJs, we know that DJs are producer DJs. But people have to understand the fact that they're not just a DJ at a party or a club. A lot of the top DJs are producer DJs. So the Arts Council fund, which is out there now, I can't remember the exact deadline, but that fund is there for artists to develop themselves. That fund is there for bands, artists, producers, DJs, creators. Make sure there are great officers who can also help you. So one of you, Kwabz, I think you said about applications for funding. The speak that they use, a lot of the time...
No. Me, after this call, me and you are going to do dinner and we're going to go through that list.
We're going to do it. We're definitely going to do it. We're going to do it. You've all got my emails, so do contact me. But what it is that when you are... The way that applications are put together, so I sit... From a funding point of view, I sit on MEGS. I've sat on lottery funding for Arts Council, knowing how to put your project together and package it is absolutely important. But I think the other side of all of this is that we are a diaspora of people who have traveled and who are disconnected. I only found out this year that my great-grandmother was a slave. Can you imagine it? Because I'm at home and I'm on the internet and I'm talking to my mum about her life in the Caribbean, and I'm watching Enslaved, the Samuel L. Jackson program on at the moment, and I'm watching all these various other things, and then me and my mum having this conversation. My gran was my hero. She was my lion. She was my rock. She's the one that puts me here in my place. But I never got to meet my great-grandmother. And then we talk about this journey. And I think that Mr. Knowles is absolutely right in terms of education. If you cannot manifest it in the mind, how can it be so? But if you don't really know where you come from and what those roots are, then what is coming out in our music? This is what we've had. If I go to Barbados, short example, because I know of time, but if I go to Barbados, right, and there's a sound system at Oystins, and all the youths, the sound system's playing, they made loads of noise, it's all bigging up, there's a little carnival, it's a fish festival, and then I see the police walk past. I'm eating my fish, my flying fish or whatever, and the police take no notice of the noise of the youths and the sound system because it's all part of the festival. And I'm like, boy, if I was in London, that would not happen. Because it's a cultural difference. And nobody was arrested at that festival. I was there all night, went into the morning. Everybody had a great time. There was food, there was stalls, there was craft. But it's the cultural, I think you write about it, don't you, Paula, in terms of the black girl and the loudness. Like, I'm a mad, crazy woman, yeah? But I'm an intelligent, mad, crazy woman. And I own myself. Nobody owns me. Yeah, and we've been trying to track our family tree. I know we've got Chinese in our family because of T-ships to the Caribbean. We've been looking at this tracking of who we are, But when you are scattered peoples, it's very hard to bring that story together because our records have been burnt and shredded, even here right now in the UK. What's the story with Theresa May and the desecration of people's records that came here to rebuild Britain and have been sent back to countries when actually you invited me. My gran came and worked for Peckham Bus Garage. She worked in the canteen most of her working life. And that's how she brought my mother and my father and my sister over from Barbados. So it's the journeys, what stories are telling. If you think about grime, drill, and where all of that is coming up from, that's from the estate and having no hope. That's from the estate when you're unemployed and a youth man and you go for an interview and there's no journey there, or the education you're receiving in secondary school is not telling your story. So you can't connect. So therefore you skip school. Therefore you are a truth. Therefore all of these things, that the repercussions of a national curriculum that does not connect with Black history means that we have the fallout that we have. And drill and grime, and even if we think about the 696 form and go back to Soul Sonic Crew days, when all of that was happening back then without a form to actually put curfew on different styles of music that are Black genres, this is the movement. So yes, there is movement because the internet allows all of your lovely businesses to be created and for you to connect and have these global communities. But the infrastructure, and I guess that's where I want to kind of speak about the All Black Coalition with the DCMS and what is happening there to have a look at the infrastructure for music and other art forms, but also what we're doing with the Black Association for Arts, BAFA UK. That's supported by Jazzy B, by Omar, by Goldie, by a whole plethora of artists. Even, you know, do you guys know that there is a Black female classical composer and conductor called Dr. Shirley Thompson OBE? The fact that that isn't in your music education, and what she does and how amazing she is, wonderful, that you don't even know she's in the classical world.
Wait, Wozzy, sorry, I feel like Clay is just itching to
go Clay.
you know, I just want to add to what Kingsley and Wozzy saying. So I think we have these little micro traps, right, in the music, and it's all to do with like the psychology of suggestion, right, and stuff. So for example, there are little euphemisms that's been used for, so urban, for example. Urban is, for me, I think it's very important that we don't say urban, because then, as Kingsley said, like these guys have built such strong fan bases and stuff, but the psychology of urban, it's not as big as pop. So, you know, you're not giving it the credibility that it's deserved. And Black music is literally Black culture. Do you know what I mean? It's like this, as a songwriter myself, or if you're into the rappers, or whether it be America or here or even Jamaica, right? The only thing we really can sing about is our experiences, and that's exactly what they sing about. So sometimes it's even misinterpreted as to say, oh, they're glorifying a certain thing, but it's just literally saying, no, like this is what I have to do to get paid or to eat, because it's not laid out. It's not as easy for me as it's as easy as any other race. Do you know what I mean? So it's very important that we start to use correct terms, like when we're talking about Black artists, Black music, and anything, just to be clear, just so we don't send the wrong message and stuff. Do you know what I mean? So that's just all I wanted to really add to the.
Can I ask you a question there?
Yes.
So obviously, I think racial politics can sometimes vary from like geographical location as well. So racial politics in Jamaica, for example, where the population is predominantly Black, or racial politics in maybe the UK, where the population, where Black people are somewhat of a minority, and then a lot of the young people that are producing music, they're being pressured from people that are maybe telling them, you know, because consumers don't look like you as well. Are you still saying that they should still unapologetically say that, you know, this is not urban music, this is Black music? And sorry, this is just me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So it's a good question. I love that question because for me, right, it's like I feel like I have to over-explain, or a black person have to explain why I have to say this is black or this is, you know what I mean? It almost feels as if, you know, I have to. There's nothing wrong with saying it's black music because it's black music. But then I'm not saying the music should only be consumed by black people. Do you know what I mean? I'm just saying it's just the negative connotations behind certain things like BAME, like, there's nothing. We might be, okay, black people might be a minority in terms of race in the UK, but then we're not minor in terms of contribution in the music industry and certain things. You get what I mean? So I'm just saying, we have to be careful how the word stuff, because it just, if it doesn't add to our credibility or how we are perceived, then it's kind of, that's what I'm saying. So
no, and to the degree why I agree with that is because it's funny. Literally 10 minutes before we went on to this talk, I got an email from Birmingham Police. So there was like a music video where I feel some of the young people in there might have done some hand gestures that clearly they're saying was connected to some form of gang violence. So I said, all right, I'll look into it. And, I'll speak to the artists and so on and so forth. So between the artists and themselves, there was like a resolution that was reached. And then the guy came back and his response was, thank you for the quick response. The overuse of large UK grime drill channels to promote gang-related violence is a national issue. And, this is when we're in the height of COVID and so on and so forth. So, that's really why I just kind of asked your question, because it made me kind of realize it's so important that maybe we do define ourselves. And as Wozzy was saying, it kind of highlights why it's so important that we kind of have our own infrastructure to kind of enable ourselves to navigate, but also to protect ourselves as well.
Yeah, but
because it's as illustrated just by that email from Birmingham Police, it's very easy for them to kind of paint us with one particular brush and dash us in the corner, and then have the cheek to tell us that we're the cause of a national issue.
It's like,
as it were.
It's like wearing. I see young men wearing hoodies, okay, and they're labeled as yobs. Instead of saying these are gangs wearing hoodies, speak to Nike or speak to Adidas then, because then you're not saying they're making gang clothing, but then why is it that the moment a young black boy wears it, it's gang clothing? Do you know what I mean? So it's just these little things that I have a problem with, and also we have to take accountability into perspective. Like, we have to now also be careful, because we're laying a platform for people to stereotype us to. So I'm saying, even if there's like gang gestures and stuff, then we have to even look inwards and say, you know what? Do you know what I mean? So, but it starts with the fact that the odds are against us. It's been against us, and because I feel like I have to work super hard just to get to where I want to get to, and it's just literally there. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely, I definitely take.
Sorry. Just a reminder to attendees, if you're watching via Zoom, please do send any questions you have to the live chat, and we can populate them for a Q&A at the end. If not, we'll obviously keep talking. But if you're also watching via Mixtape Madness's YouTube channel, you can just tweet your question over at aim_UK. And I know we're getting into it, but I do want to move the conversation along just a little bit. And I think we've been talking about slavery and the connections and the links with music. And in your keynote, Mr. Knowles, you mentioned giving credits to slaves for the origin, or the necessity of giving credits for slaves for the origin of most music. How would you actually want to see that done within, but also beyond the industry? How could that feasibly be done?
Well, I think we should give orientations, and you said it. Someone said it earlier. In the high school, college levels, and in the music industry. Most people have no clue how music came about in America, how these slaves endured this terrible, terrible trip that took 2 years to get to America. Were beaten and were moaning and they were tribal and they couldn't speak the same language. And they get here to America and are enslaved, and they begin to do what is called sorrow songs. And sorrow songs is what gospel is today. And they, again, the slave masters wouldn't let them have drums because they felt there would be messaging in the drums. And they probably were right about that. But then the slaves had to be creative, as we are. Think about a tree, and the tree has the roots. And the roots is really music and represents music. And from that tree are branches. And those branches are fashion and food. That's who we are as a people, and that spiritual element of us. And how, again, music continued to develop. And it was technology. We heard someone talk about that earlier. It's when the phonograph, vinyl records became, see, the slaves were performing in minstrels. And by the way, a canting is a banjo, which is the guitar. And that's where the guitar came from. We were the first person to perform at the Grand Ole Opry was a black man. You know, we just don't know the history of how our music got jacked. Elvis Presley calling himself the king of rock and roll. How about Fats Domino? How about some of the other artists? Little Richard. We just have no idea. We created country music, Black people. And Afro pop and Afro beats is now the cool thing in America. And we have to look at it. Look, that's 330 million Americans. There's 1.2 billion Africans. And there's a billion plus in India. And there's a billion plus in China. It's the emerging markets where our new growth will be. It won't be in the UK. It won't be in the United States. It'll be in these emerging markets. And we have better understand how to play in these emerging markets. And I really love Sister Wozzy. Boy, I love your style because I'm about having the information, not talking about feelings, but having documented information. And no, our growth in the record industry as Black people in key roles, maybe in the UK, but in America, we haven't seen that. It's actually a decline in the number of senior executives that are Black and female. So and if you want to know more, read my book, Emancipation of Slaves Through Music, and go through that journey with me.
Okay, amazing. Thank you very much. And there's a wonderful, wonderful plug. So I think also some of us have touched on how Black talent have been failed, specifically in the UK, and have often headed off to the US or elsewhere, basically international markets where they believe that they'll have a much better chance. Open to the floor, what do you think it would take to actually retain Black talent in the UK?
I think like a lot of maybe labels didn't know what to do necessarily with Black talent, like when in a particular time and place. But I feel like now a lot of artists are finding their sense of independence and using that sense of independence to create a form of ownership. Now you have artists that are charting that own their masters. So what that means is they are able to actually generate more and more income through their music, whereas maybe before it was harder to kind of quote unquote generate that level of income without compromising to a label. And I mean, when you're looking at some of the label deals, you're looking at 80-20 splits, and after you recoup, so sometimes some of these artists are probably never ever gonna make back some of the money from their streaming, because they'll never really recoup. It will take forever. I think in order to kind of retain to bring, I guess you're saying, how do you bring those or change that analogy, I guess is the real question. How do you change the analogy that you can create your own kind of ecosystem? Like once you have more loyal and super fans that are buying into your music, rather than thinking about just as a mass of people that are just listening to music. And I think if the more and more we can push that narrative about building super fans, like you can you can actually retain, like a lot of artists, especially UK artists, can retain their fan base and really build their own worth around just a small bunch of super fans. And yeah, that's kind of my thinking of it.
We need more women.
We need more women.
Yeah.
We need more nurturers. We need television coverage. We need a national curriculum that educates our young people at school that this journey is a business like any other business, and it's a professional industry. We need development in terms of investment in talent pipelines and mentoring programs that do reflect. I know that Help Musicians UK have launched a new mentoring program, and certainly everybody here could be a mentor on that program, because if you see yourself, you can connect. Yeah. If you think about the fact that without, Nelson Mandela said, if you have a vision, but you don't have action, then you're just kind of passing time. If you have action with a vision, without a vision, then you're daydreaming. But if you take action on your vision, and it's not the right way it's said, I don't remember all that stuff, but it's more about the fact that if you have A&Rs that are representative and teams within the industry that are representative, do make sure you get the task force report and see where we've gone from 2015 to 2020, and be a part of making sure that we're feeding in that stat into everything. We have to have the inclusion from school all the way up into business. You talked about capital assets in your keynote speak. Well, capital assets, how are you going to get the funds if nobody gets your funds? Maxi Priest, when he was blowing up here and didn't really get the traction and everything here that he should have with his reggae album, he basically, to get further his success, he went to Japan, went to Jamaica. He traveled elsewhere. I don't think, and that's a journey in the 80s. So you're talking about your journey, Michael, for example, now in the noughties and coming into the 21st century, same journey. I have a friend, Eamon Walker, actor. He's a great actor and in loads of different things, from Chicago Fire to lots of other things. Well, the fact is he had to go to America for his acting career to have some legs. Marianne Jean-Baptiste, where is she? She's in the States. So what I think the difference is what the US has, it has more Black businesses with finance and opportunity. What we don't have is that plethora of Black professionals connected. I think that the Black Music Coalition is going to be part of bringing a collective together, and certainly BAFI UK, which launches on the 6th of November, is going to be part of. We're not actually just bringing together artists. We are bringing together arts, education, science, law, and business. From BBC producers to a stem cell scientists, people across different, because we need the research. Think about the business. In order for your business plan to be professional, you need the research that goes with that business plan so that it can progress. So bringing together education, arts, science, law, and business people on a scale. Jazzy B is a co-founder. Cleveland Watkins, Julian Joseph is a supporter. All of these people, we're all spreading our network, but then also looking at a LinkedIn network where we will drop the goals. It's like dropping some gold in there. Somebody goes to me, Wozzy, come and be on this panel, or come and be on this board of directors, but I don't have time. I can't split Wozzy always. So what I need to do is be able to dip into a pool and say, here's an opportunity, whether it's a job, whether it's being on a government board level. So I was part of the cultural strategy for the Greater London Authority under Ken Livingstone. I was part of that development of the first start up of the GLA. So it's whether or not, are you going to take time out to influence change if you have the knowledge and the connection? That's the question.
Yeah.
Can I just add something? Can I just wanted to echo what Kingsley said, actually, because the thing is, why a lot of people used to look to America is as America seemed to it seemed that America knew how to break the Black artists, you know what I mean? So the UK sort of followed suit, you know what I mean? But it's the re-education as well, because I'm just going to put this out there because I was asked this question early in my career and it just clicked everything for me. So this gentleman, I can't remember his name. I had a writing camp I was at writing camp in New York, Rock Nation days, and he said to me, you know, said, Clay, do you want to make $1 million or sell $1 million? And then he just said, take your time, you know. So this is the thing. It's like, do you want to make $1 million or sell $1 million? Because it's two different things, and you know, the work rate or what you have to give up or keep is completely different. And I think with the independent artists now in the UK, as Kingsley said, you know, that like a lot of them are coming through right now. So, and they're really finding what success is. And the more we start to highlight these things and educate and sort of, you know, I think a lot more we'll get there. Do you know what I mean?
And I think, Michael, as someone who has kind of straddled both sides, what do you think it takes to retain Black talent in the UK?
That's an interesting question. I think that if we're talking about the infrastructure, it certainly needs more appointing of Black executives in the major labels. I mean, I know that Kingsley has mentioned that you've got executives dotted all over the place, but you know, the truth be told, Darkus, for example, is now in America. He left to take up the presidency island there. And you've got the twins, you know, here and there, but the connectedness, it hasn't really shifted. It's very, very slow, very, very slow. And really I think a lot of this is down to, again, it really does boil down to a lack of education. You do have to, referencing what Wozzy said and Mr. Knowles said, referencing the understanding of how much music comes from Black people and putting that into the educational system so that this can be recognized throughout the fullness of society. When, for example, Little Richard passed, I remember having a conversation with a white friend of mine about him being, you know, one of the founders of rock and roll. He'd never even heard of him. Never even heard of Little Richard. This is in the UK. And what he would have heard of Cliff Richard, who was only Cliff Richard because he took his name from Little Richard to become Cliff Richard, you know, one of the legends of UK music here. So I think that it is an all-encompassing, you know, approach of education in the schools, the school curriculum, which then feeds through to the respecting of where the music comes from, you know, from Africa and from the descendants of Africa. And then that would, you know, bring a change. But it's not there yet. It needs that.
Can I jump in here? I just want to say a couple of things. In my career, we've sold 57% of all of our music outside of America. 57%. So, you know, as much as I've traveled, and by the way, in 2002, I sold my company to a UK company, Sanctuary, and bought it back in 2007. So I know a lot about London. I've been there hundreds of times. And it's always, oh, how can we get to America? We want to be in America. America might be overrated when it comes to music. Me, if I was me, I want to get to Africa. I want to get to India. I want to get to Brazil. I want to get to Australia. You know, I don't understand why everybody wants to come to the heart where the greatest competition in the world is. Why wouldn't you want to go to the places where the easiest competition in the world is? I just needed to make that comment for me.
Clay, is there something you want to add?
No. I was just saying it's so true because in my old deal days, right? My minimum delivery requirement in a publishing. This is funny, right? So if I get a placement in the UK or the USA, that's what's counted. But everywhere else doesn't count. You know what I mean? So, and I think it's untapped because I tour the world and I'm touring everywhere else. Like my biggest fan base is in Costa Rica. Do you know what I mean? So these are untapped waters and stuff. And I just with Mr. Knowles, I'm just saying to Mr. Knowles, you know, it's 100% on the money.
I think that we consume a lot of American music here in the UK. So I think that desire and that connection, they're seeing success as an American success because the consumption in the UK is very high. But I think that certainly, I went to Stax Music Academy. We did a project with the Midi Music Company and Memphis, but we've also done projects in Lithuania, and we've also done projects in Germany. And right now, I think that what Mr. Knowles said previously about the emerging markets, if you're ahead of your game, you've got to look at where the next penny is going to come from in its way. And, you know, I'm connecting with Colombia, connecting with Brazil, connecting with markets where our genres are there. They're being played on the radio. And we touched a little bit on the fact that actually digital radio against mainstream. If we want powerhouse, we need to change the makeup of the people who decide what is played on the radios. And to build wealth for artists who are producing Black music, Black artists, because a lot of the time they're on digital radio stations. So the royalty is less. So what you've got to do is look at India, China. There's all of this stuff that's going on. If you've not been to South by Southwest or Midem or Womex is going on right now, these are some of the places where you could begin. So I've got a meeting this weekend with somebody in Melbourne. Online, on a little old virtual Zoom, but they connected. And then I've got 2 other meetings with people from Cuba and Colombia. So those meetings for me are about seeding for our clients to see what opportunities there are. Steam Down went to Colombia. Well, I knew the woman who actually is the Minister of Culture for Bogota. And when I was going to Womex and having conversations about the new jazz movement here in the UK and what was going down, you're able to help them to make a decision about booking these artists that they've just discovered. They're seeing that there's movement, but letting them know these guys are professional, they're on their game, they're producing, they're writing, they own their stuff, they're creating, and encouraging those markets to take a risk, to invite them to come and play at their festivals, to connect with them, to, I don't know what the Melbourne guy is going to say. He's very excited that the person in Colombia is very excited about making that contact because they've looked at what we're doing and talking about what they're trying to do in Colombia past. They can get lots of very big audiences, but how's the infrastructure of the royalty system happening there? How is a lot of, when I went to Brazil, a lot of the artists there basically had no real label investment in their albums. They were producing their stuff themselves and to a very high standard, but didn't have the marketing campaign to push the music out past, I went to Salvador, out past Salvador. And there's, you know, various countries. We met the man of Bahia, of Salvador, making those connections to be able to host collaborations. We've got the internet, so we can do some stuff online. We can't travel the way that we used to. We're not in a massive live market right now. So we have to be clever and innovative with the way in which we present ourselves. And I think that there is, I'm getting stuff all the time for China, getting stuff all the time for India. Now I'm seeing my Colombia information coming through. So how do I build those contacts and networks for our client at Midi Music Company or for the band that I manage? So I manage an 8-piece ska reggae band and a 4-piece. So Yusuf Days and his brothers and Wayne Francis, who's Steam Down, have a band called United Vibrations. And they've been on a break and they're coming up with new music. But what you're seeing is the trajectory. Yusuf Days hit the charts with a collaboration with Tom Misch. I think that Yusuf Days could hit the charts on its own. But we need the marketing machines behind that. So when he decides he's going to have his own label, And how is he going to get his publishing? It's being able to connect. So somebody whispers in my ear and I said, yeah, you should sign the publisher reviews today, because I know how hard he's going to work. I know that because I've seen him work for the last 10 years, 11 years. This is a drummer born four years old, drumming out his music on pots and pans. This is a family of brothers who are creatives. So there are so many, you know, if I think about Steam Down and what Wayne is doing with Steambound and the jazz movement that we're experiencing, we can go back to the early days of United Vibrations and travel through to Shabaka Hutchins, Nabaya Garcia, Moses Days, Yusuf Days, Zone, Solo, Steam Down, and see this trajectory. This is the history that has to be told, and this is the history that has to be written too. Because, you know, Mr. Knowles, you talked about rock and roll. We always forget about Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's nothing without her. Forget rock. There is no rock and roll without her.
Exactly.
But yet still, I have to find that program here in the UK. I have to find that program on BBC 4, maybe 2 in the morning. You know, if you do watch some of the BBC iPlayer or BBC 4, they have some great music programs. So I love that little, I drop in. It's late. I'm a bit of a late bird. So, you know, I'll be up and you can capture these wonderful stories that if I didn't look out for this, I wouldn't know. And when I watched her story, I went, wow, man. And she was coming to London. She was coming to London and performing, and everybody learned these riffs from this amazing woman that you hear so little about.
I think that's a really powerful note to end that on, just because we've got a couple questions in the chat tab that I want to throw out to you. But thank you all so much for your contributions. This has been a really, really insightful conversation. So question 1, I think Kwabz kind of answered it in the chat, but I'll bring it up again. Someone asked, would any of the panelists be willing to have a one-on-one conversation about publishing? I'm studying music business and pursuing a career in publishing. So is anyone, Wozzy? Is that?
I can. I'm cool to have that conversation every day too, so it's fine.
Clay has his 2 publishing companies.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have the AIM team actually coordinate that, which would be excellent. Another question. What areas of music and media industries do Black entrepreneurs need to be involved in to become successful powerhouses?
The first your question cut off.
Mr. Knowles.
The first
question. Okay, I'll repeat. What areas of the music and media industry do Black entrepreneurs need to be involved in to become successful powerhouses?
Music business and marketing.
Anyone else?
Well, I think that covers a broad spectrum. Music, and I think we can.
I feel. Hello.
What happened?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Knowles, you cut out. I think Kwabz's speaker was speaking over you. Do you mind repeating?
I think music business is certainly a right answer, but I think we can actually peel the onion somewhat on the various areas of music business and where we're going into. Being in a video, I said earlier, see music instead of hearing it. We will, in the future, every time we experience music, it will be in a video form. The audio form is slowly going away. And so there will be some tremendous opportunities. But the key goes back to what some of us have said over and over and over. A part of failure for Black folks is our lack of knowledge. We want to microwave it, and we want to see our name on the chart, and then 3 years from now, we don't even know whether they exist. We need to do more artist development. You know, with Destiny's Child, we practice failure. The ladies never knew in a practice if the lights were going off, if the sound was going off. We would actually purposely their high heels so that they would break we practice failure. I don't see artists today really develop an understanding how to entertain versus how to sing or rap. It's a big difference. I'm about being the very best. If you want to be average, I don't want to talk to you. If you want to be exceptional, then I want to talk to you. Somebody said it really well. Do you want to sell 1 million records or do you want to make $1 million? Those approaches are totally opposite. And most people don't even understand what I just said.
I think we do. My son's in Oklahoma. He's doing a soccer management degree. And when he first started there, he's almost finished now. The first year, he said what his curriculum was. And one of his modules is called Student for Success. And I was like, can you please send me the documentation for that? We don't have any curriculum like that says Student for Success. I said, I'm so glad he's at Southwestern Christian University. I'm so glad he's in this place because you're teaching my son to be successful. You're not saying just accept what comes your way. To your point, Mr. Knowles, is absolutely about you can only be the best that you can be. And artist development, when I say music business, yes, it's got a lot of layers, but you must understand the business of the business you want to be in.
Yeah, you're playing the wrong game. You know, I think that's what I've learned from just being, you know, in the business of it. Like I make music every day, but literally, if you don't understand that, I think it's even 90% business. Like, you know, and everything economically affect the actual business of music. So definitely, it's just the education of the actual game that you're playing. So yeah.
And our final question before we unfortunately have to wrap up, someone has asked, can you also discuss investing in each other and what opportunities are available?
Well, I'm a marketing person. I need you to invest in me playlists. That's what I need, folks. A Black African-owned company in the streaming space. And we can be successful if we had all of the world's African and Black support. We don't ever support one another like other cultures do. So I'm asking for your support on a startup streaming platform.
Yeah, and I feel as well, just don't underestimate the value of your network of people with soft skills, such as those who have skills in law, or those who have skills in HR, as it were, because they also play such a critical part with regard to infrastructure in what you're trying to build. And we've seen now that a lot of our music economy, especially during COVID-19, has been dependent on, you know, technology, especially when you can't perform live. So we also have to have a bit more of a concentrated effort into investing in our young people breaking into the tech landscape as well. That's my humble opinion anyway.
Incredible. Well, that's unfortunately all we've got time for this evening. But thank you so much to our attendees who've watched us on Zoom or on Mixtape Madness's YouTube channel. We appreciate it very much. Thank you so much, AIM, for having us for this talk. It's been incredibly insightful. And thank you so much, Wozzy, Kingsley, Clay, Mr. Knowles, Michael, and Kwabz for all of your insights and sharing your knowledge as well. I'm not even in the music world and I feel like I've learned so much. So thank you all for spending time with us this evening as well.
Massive thank you, Paula, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Moderated work. Thanks. And thanks to everyone.
Have a good evening. Bye.